guys, I want to take a moment to share with you the connection between somatic work, something I talk about quite a bit, and how it supports your relationships. If you have followed my newsletter or content on social media, you know that I talk a lot about body-based holistic work, somatic work, the nervous system, and really how it impacts our interactions with people. And I'm not always great at making the connection because it's not so obvious. I mean, this is a world I've been in for over 20 years, so it feels obvious to me, but I recognize that it's not always so clear. So just taking a moment to kind of break that down a little bit. And when we're doing somatic work, that can look like a lot of different things, but primarily one of the first things we're doing is really tuning into our bodies and slowing down and noticing what's happening in terms of our sensation, in terms of our breath, in terms of aches and pains that are going on, in terms of emotions that might be rising to the surface that maybe we didn't realize that we were pushing away or ignoring. And so when we're in relationships and we have an experience with somebody, whether they said something or did something that triggered us, or whether we are simply stressed from all of the different things that are going on in the world, which is very, very valid, and that takes up so much of our bandwidth that then we become like more reactive in a relationship because we are like overwhelmed or we're already feeling flooded from all the different things going on outside of us. And so this is where somatic work can come in to play, because if we are feeling overwhelmed and stressed and we don't always realize that, a lot of times our reactions or our responses even just go into automatic mode, right? So we will respond in a way that's like quick or sharp, or we have a tone, or we will filter our reactions through like a limiting belief or experience that we've had where someone might get upset with us, or someone doesn't like what we have to say, or somebody might get frustrated. And so when we're feeling overwhelmed and stressed, those automatic reactions are just more likely to happen because we just don't have that capacity to be able to pause, to reflect, to think, oh, maybe this person said this for XYZ reason, instead of maybe putting our own assumption onto it from our lens through our filter of our past experiences. So when I work with people and we work somatically, certainly they'll tell me what's going on or their story, or they'll say, you know, I had this fight with my husband, or this thing happened at work, or, you know, whatever the story was or is. And then we get some context around it, like, oh, isn't that interesting that this person said this and this is how you thought of it? Or isn't that interesting that this experience happened to you where someone disagreed with you or was frustrated and there was a part of you that got triggered, but instead of it being this experience where you're like this adult that's feeling relatively grounded and could respond back, you felt maybe attacked, or you felt like someone was just criticizing you. And when we walk that back a little bit, you might realize like, oh yeah, this used to happen to me a lot, like as a kid, or yeah, anytime I had a different opinion, someone would push back on me or I'd get in trouble. So we start to really make these connections between what's happening in the present moment and what may have happened in the past that we just haven't fully processed. And so when we do the somatic work, we kind of sit in some of that energy a little bit, right? It's not always the most pleasant in the moment because who wants to remember these things, right? But there's actually a lot of things that we don't consciously remember, which is why the somatic part is so important. So if you could every single time like remember like, oh, okay, I'm gonna slow down and not react because I remember when I was 3, like this thing happened and I have this tendency, so I'm not gonna take that into consideration and I'm gonna act from this place of presence. Like who does that, right? I mean, we can certainly have awareness and be like, oh yeah, this doesn't feel quite right, but in the moment when we're triggered, it's really hard to slow down. And so when you've done enough work where you can sit with some of that discomfort and like make some of those connections. And actually in the somatic work, when you're feeling the sensations and you're noticing your breath and you're kind of feeling the discomfort, and maybe an old memory pops up and you realize like, oh, I see, like I really see the connection now. That's when the trigger starts to dissipate, right? Because we have like awareness of it cognitively, but we're also processing the stress that our body is experiencing, or like that guarding or that hypervigilance that we have when our body is protecting us. And trying to keep us safe. And so as we start to, in the somatic work, in the slowing down, in some of the guided practices where you can slow down and feel some of these things, this is really when the change starts to happen in our nervous system. And when that change happens in our nervous system, then we don't have to go to those automatic reactions anymore, right? It's because our body is literally not responding in the same way because we've taken some time to work with the trigger. And so this is like a very, very short explanation, but I wanted to just give you some sense of like how these things are connected. Like, how does focusing on my body when I'm stressed or when I'm processing something that happened that really upset me, that really made me angry, that really made me sad or feeling hurt or betrayed, how does processing that actually help us clear and heal an old experience and actually release the energy of that experience from our body in a very proactive way, right? It's not like somebody else is doing this for you. You are learning how to sit with it, and then you then have the tools to do it over and over again when you experience that in your life. So I hope this gives you a little insight into the process. And if you are interested in doing some of this work together in a more concentrated way where you get a high level of support, then I would really love to chat with you. So please be in touch and we can chat more about what this would look like for you and how it would really help you deeply transform some of these old experiences and ultimately allow you to have much better, much healthier, much more secure, loving relationships like in your present.